How is it going, everybody? Or should I say Valar Morghulis? Yeah, today is the final episode of Game of Thrones. That's starting in about an hour or two. And yeah, making some food, a nice cheese plate for the boys coming over to watch the Game of Thrones finale there. And yeah, pretty stoked. So yeah, gonna do a beer review. I figured this one right here would be pretty appropriate as it's a Game of Thrones themed beer. Today's beer is gonna be from Ommegang Brewery out there in, or Brewery Ommegang out there in Cooperstown, New York. This is King in the North. It's part of their Game of Thrones Royal Reserve collection. It's a barrel-aged imperial stout in dedication to Jon Snow, who I think might just sit on the throne at the end of all this, if there still is one. But yeah, that or Sansa. I don't know. I've always been Team Sansa, or like at least for the last couple seasons. But yeah, yeah, that'd be pretty neat. Nice little twist. But yeah, on with the beer. It's a barrel-aged imperial stout coming in at 11% alcohol by volume. I had their Mother of Dragons, which was a creek mixed with a smoked porter, and that was pretty cool, and really enjoyed that one. So psyched for this one. I hear this one's really good, based on like all the online beer rating sites and stuff. So pretty psyched for it. Let's get it cracked, poured, and see how it is. All right. Pours a nice. Let's get it in the camera there. Pours a nice, pretty dark brown color, not quite pitch black as I would expect from an imperial stout, but yeah, looks good though. Nice 2.5 fingers worth of a really beautiful mocha brown kind of head. Looks really nice in that glassware there. Yeah, looks pretty cool. Let's get an aroma. Definitely getting coffee and like molasses right away. A hint of that bourbon in the background. But yeah, a really subtle but intense bourbon kind of note, if that makes sense. Like, it's definitely got a nice bourbon note, but it's hidden under everything else, you know. There's a slight booziness on the aroma there. I'm getting hints of like a nice dried dark fruit, maybe like a raisin, stuff like that. And like a dark chocolate covered nut of some sort. Maybe a pecan, pecan? Yeah, some sort of dark chocolate nuttiness, you know. But that smells pretty nice. Let's try it out. Cheers, everybody. Nice bitterness to the beer. One thing with these imperial stouts and stuff is if I'm drinking a small taster worth, like this size of an imperial stout, I like my nice sweet desserty, like creme brulee kind of like churro kind of imperial stouts, like dessert stouts. But when it's in this format, like 750 mils, I want something more bitter, roasty, and it just balances out as you drink it. You know, you don't get like just the diabetes kind of sweetness going throughout the hours long process of drinking one of these. And yeah, it's I like this because I've had a couple beers lately where I'm really digging the first glassful, and by the time I get to the end of it, I'm just like, holy shit, this is sweet. And I usually end up making like some sort of dessert or like a cocktail, like beer cocktails out of it, basically. But this one tastes like a beer I could drink throughout the night, you know. I could probably finish a couple bottles of these, honestly. Like It's really pleasant beer. Flavor-wise, first let's get into the mouthfeel. You do get that bitterness, really like that. Balances out a nicely with that slight sweetness of like the chocolate, the raisin kind of flavors. It's a little thin on the body, but again, that's something you almost want in a bigger 11% beer. I forget if I said the strength of it. It's 11%. So yeah, something like that. Big, thick, rich, creamy beer is gonna be pretty hard to get the whole thing down. But this, it's a little bit lighter. And the bitterness it just really helps with the whole drinking process, you know. Yeah, really easy drinking beer, especially for its strength. Speaking of the strength, 11%. I'm not getting much, if any, booze at all. If I was given it blind, I'd say it was like a 8-9% maybe, something like that, you know. It's really well hidden in there. Yeah, flavor wise, let's go on to the taste. Yeah, it's mainly the stout with a little bit of that bourbon barrel age in the background there. It's more of a note than like the star, you know, which I actually really prefer in bourbon barrel aged imperial stouts or any sort of barrel aged beers. I want it to be like the beer, not the spirit, you know, or else I'd be buying bourbon, you know, and pour some Guinness in it. I don't know. But yeah, it's got a little bit of that bourbon in the background. You get that slight vanilla, a nice nuttiness, a nice like slightly woody, smoky kind of flavor off of this beer. You do get a little bit of that dry, bourbony kind of like I often get in these bourbon barrel aged beers, just this roasty, smoky, dry kind of background, like back of the throat, back of the palate. Yeah, dark chocolate, coffee from the stout, getting a nice amount of, like I said, prune, maybe a hint of like a slight fig. I don't know, maybe a hint of like a pecan, maybe a roasted walnut, something like that. It's really cool. Nice, roasty, toasty kind of flavors throughout. Just a really easy drinking for its strength imperial stout, you know. Yeah, I would definitely buy this again. It was a little bit pricey in my area, but you know what, this is something I could see myself drinking pretty much whenever I was in the mood for a nice complex but fun to drink, won't give you diabetes imperial stout, you know. This is really good. I'm actually surprised. People who watch my channel often probably know that I'm not a big fan of the boozy imperial stouts. Like, I've had a couple where it's just straight up bourbon and bourbon and bourbon, and then a little bit of stout in the background. Not a fan of that, and that's why I like this beer so much, is because it has the bourbon, but again, it's not the main thing of the beer, you know. It's beer, it's not bourbon, and that's what I like about it. So yeah, as a rating on this beer, I would give this straight up like an A rating, maybe verging on an A minus. It's definitely not the best stout I've had, but it's readily available, at least at this time. I guess I'm guessing it's like a one-off kind of thing and probably won't make it again. But yeah, pick up a couple bottles of it. It's definitely worth drinking. I'll be giving this like a 93, right around there. I'm really digging it. So yeah, there we go. Cool stuff. Definitely check it out if you're a fan of stout with a hint of bourbon rather than bourbon with a hint of stout kind of beers. King in the North. And yeah, let's give the Starch the throne there, you know. Yeah, pretty psyched. I am pretty psyched. So let me know what y'all think of this beer, any of Ommegang's other beers, any of the Game of Thrones beers you've had from Ommegang, if you have had any. And yeah, there we go. Also, let me know if you see this before the end of the series, what you think will happen, and if you have already seen it when you see this, what you thought of the results. You know, I'm actually kind of curious. I'm wondering if they're gonna just completely screw with the fan base again. But yeah, there we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please give me a like, a comment, and subscribe. And until the next time, cheers.